If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Ricky, can we ask some questions while we are waiting for others?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can I have a source for a report as a report?
Data source for a report as a report? No.
No. Okay. Okay. Do we have any document that we are going to share? What is the source? Like, for example, I need to get all the retired employees last week, or who are reaching the 68 years old, getting retired or terminated last year. So I always have to depend on active or terminated employee. So that will have the too many active employees, too many retired employees or terminated employees. I want only terminated employees. So can I create my own subset of terminated employees and use that as
You
a
can, yeah. You can create your own data source. And but again, the preferred way that you will hear most of the time is use the data sources because they are indexed. So use the data sources that are provided by Workday, and then you put a filter on those data sources rather than trying to create your own data source. But you certainly can. You can create your own data source though.
Oh, technically we can, but it's not suggested. Got you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And okay. So when we are writing reports, I don't know whether I can ask this question now. I'll postpone this. So can I have the my organization structure vertically and horizontally aligned? For example, my company is technology-wise vertically and domain-wise horizontally aligned. I might be belongs to one of the horizontal and one of the vertical. So can I arrange that kind of organization structure?
Technologically you're vertically aligned and functionally you're horizontally aligned. So that is the setup on the organization level. So yes, you can. And what needs to happen in those scenarios is probably, let's say, for example, you could be having two managers, or you could be belonging to two organizations at the same time. So that is called a matrix organization in Workday. And yes, it is completely possible.
Wonderful. And it's not, I don't know whether you should have prompts right now, but so can I have a by default or internally passed prompt? For example, when I'm seeing my report, I should see only my data. When you are seeing the same report, you should see only your data.
Yep. It's possible.
Okay. Is it internally we are passing the variable, or can I pass multiple variables, or is it taking based on the single sign-on?
Okay, so depending on what kind of a report you are executing. And so to answer your question, ma'am, you can have a custom report. For example, you want to see the employees that are in your organization, or let's say you are the manager of a team and you want to execute a report where you want to see your team members' data. And so in that case, you could create this custom report two ways. You could have a report where you hard code that you are the manager, where the manager is equal to Ram, or you could create a custom report where you say, show me a prompt. When I execute this report, the prompt would show up. And if I write Ricky, I should see people under my team. If I type in Ram, I should see people under Ram's team. So yes, you could have a prompt which is executed at the runtime, or you could pass in a default value for a prompt, which could be hard coded into the report itself.
Oh, okay. Because we run a lot of reports. We extract the data from Workday. So sometimes if a job fails or something happens on the server side, memory or whatever the issue, so we run it with past date. For example, Saturday there is a problem nobody observed. On Monday we run the data for Friday. So those cases we will go for a prompt. Other cases it will go for default passing a parameter, right?
Yeah. So are you talking about a report, or you're talking about an integration system? Because the scenario that you're explaining to me looks like more like an integration system.
There's more on integration, but like some of the reports. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a concept of dates. I'll get to it when we get to the point of core connector. So there is a concept of effective date and entry date and how it affects when you fetch the data. So we'll talk about it.
Okay, got you. No problem.
Sure.
And do we talk anything on the deployment? Sorry, because I just waiting for the time. I just thought of using your time. So do we talk anything about the deployments during these sessions going forward? Any?
Deployment, like moving your code from sandbox to production kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's very simple, actually. I'll show you once we get there. Whatever changes you make, there's an option. Let's say you create created a report, there's an option to migrate it. And when you hit migrate, you move it from one environment to another.
Oh, great. Because I sit very close to some person who takes interview on Workday, and sometimes I just write down the question that he asks. So,
Oh, that's interesting. That's good to know, actually. So you
yeah,
should actually, you bring a lot of value on the table for benefit of everybody in this group.
definitely, definitely. Whatever that I can
Cool.
contribute, I will.
Yeah, that's nice. Good to hear. All right.
And
Go
yeah,
ahead.
that's it. They only pushed me to go for Workday training, so that's the reason I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. So
You're from what background? PeopleSoft?
I'm no more on the ETL data side,
Okay. Data side.
Oracle,
Okay.
Cognos, and all the other stuff.
Okay. Sounds good. Rashmi, you have a question?
Yeah, since we were talking about the migrating the reports to one tenant to another tenant,
Hmm.
I wanted to check what is the best way to migrate. I heard that you're saying migrated, but sometimes in the another tenant that the object has a different value or some change happen that people say that if you migrate the report, it's not necessarily work similar to one to another tenant.
So, $1 million question. So the way it works is, and you're right. So let's say I'm in the sandbox, and most of the times when you get a, let's say you're working in a help desk support kind of a role in your organization, taking care of tickets, somebody comes back and says, you know what, why don't you test this thing and make this work? So you are testing that in you're testing that in your sandbox environment. When you're testing that in your sandbox environment and you see it works, and then you move it to production and it doesn't work. So like you said, there is a possibility that the sandbox refresh happened long time ago. The data is completely out of sync between production and sandbox. So your report that is that's working fine in sandbox might not work correctly or might not show the latest and greatest data in your production environment. So you got to make sure that yes, the systems are in sync. When you're testing something in your sandbox instance, it's not completely off from the production.
So, do you think object transporter is a better way, or the migration is a better way to transport the report? Because object transporter may give a little better report of what is the difference in like whatever calculated field you have created.
Could be actually, object transport I've recent, but most of the time I've seen is it's usually when you make a change onto the worker object or you have made a change to the business process configurations, then you usually use the object reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Let's get started. Okay. So, all right, let's get started. So, not sure. So, people who have missed the last class, we haven't covered actually not too much. We just went about accessing how do you access Workday, how do you navigate Workday. But most of the people who are in this class, I think they have little understanding how Workday works. So today we are doing a deep dive into the report writer. And so the topic for today is report writer for Workday. So this course introduces you to the Workday Report Writer tool. So if you have not created reports before, we are going to create Workday reports, and we will learn how to leverage Workday business objects and data sources to access the report data you need. You will also learn how to build custom reports to meet business requirements from various functional areas. So we will be covering these with reporting overview, building the custom reports, sorting and filtering, prompting, total grouping outlining, security of the report, scheduling of the report, introduction to matrix reports, working with calculated fields, and report performance. So these are in a broader terms, this is what we're going to cover when we will talk about the report writer. Goals and objectives in this class, you will be stepping into the roles of two workers at Global Modern Services. So GMS, or like we call this tenant that we are going to access for Workday, it's called a GMS tenant, which is Global Modern Services tenant. It is a fake company setup that Workday provides for you to learn Workday. And it's not sandbox. Mind it is not sandbox. It's complete. It's only a GMS tenant. It's a fake tenant setup. So there are two users in this. Logan McNeil, the Vice President of Human Resources, is the report writer for the HCM side of the business. Teresa Serrano, another user in Workday, Controller, is the report writer for the financial side of the business. Throughout this class, you will be given a set of business case scenarios in which Teresa and Logan will be required to create reports with specific requirements. You will help them build custom reports using the Workday Report Writer tool. So like I mentioned in the last class, Report Writer tool is not a separate tool, but it is the actual Workday UI. So nothing fancy going on here. It's the Workday UI only. By the end of this course, you will be able to create a custom report using the advanced report type. So we will be focusing more on the advanced report. I'll tell you the differences, but advanced report is the report that we're going to see more often. This report will sort, filter, prompts, groups, and totals the data. Create a basic matrix report that summarizes the data and uses drillable fields. This is kind of important. I've seen some people coming back to me and asking me, like, how do you do this? There are some sample reports that you can pick up in Workday and use them as your base and go from there. Create a basic matrix report that summarizes the data and uses drillable fields. Use the tools in Workday to determine the appropriate primary business object and data source for a report. This is super important. Why it is important is because, like, I think Ram had this question, like, which data sources can I use? Can I make my own data source, or can I only have to rely on the data sources that Workday provides? So picking up the right data source is actually very important because it affects the performance of your report. How much data are you picking? Is it necessary data, relevant data, irrelevant data? So it's important. Similarly, the concept of the primary business object. Which is your primary business object? What fields do you want to get? Where does those fields reside? Under which object do they reside? Because as I mentioned, everything in Workday resides in an object. All the fields, they're not orphan fields. They reside in an object. And so, for example, worker is an object. Okay. All right. Then create a basic calculated field to display data from a related business object on a report. So we will actually create a basic field, a calculated field. So I'm not sure if we have talked about calculator because I might have talked to my other batch, but we will talk about calculated fields. So we will be talking about creating a calculated field, and a calculated field is different from the standard Workday fields. It is a field whose value is resolved at the runtime. So think of that as a field, like it's like a placeholder, but it's deriving its value. Probably it's doing some arithmetic calculation. It's doing evaluating an expression, doing a true false thing, or string manipulation. So the value of this field is resolved at the runtime. It's different from a custom field. It's different from a custom field. It's called a calculated field. So we will be creating a basic calculating field to display the data from a related business object. So there's a primary business object and there's a related business object. Troubleshoot why a user cannot access a report or see certain data on the report. Explain the performance considerations when creating a custom report. I am hoping that most of you understand the concept of proxy. If you do not, so what we can do in Workday is we will be using proxy a lot because we are going to solve business case scenarios. So what would happen is Logan McNeil wants to do something, and when she's trying to log in, she has some stuff that she does or she creates. It needs to go to approval to her manager. Now what do? How do we get to her manager? So we have the concept of proxy. So proxy access and training tenants. Throughout this class, you will use proxy access in your training tenants to make it easy to test reports as other users. Proxy access can only be enabled in training, sandbox, and other non-production environments. You cannot have proxy in your production. Should not. In order to use proxy access, a proxy access policy must be configured in the tenant. Most of the time, it's configured by the Workday administrators. You can use the start proxy task to act as another user in the tenant. So when it's a task. So you go to Workday and you type the start proxy in the search box, and start proxy shows up. And so you are logged in as Logan McNeil, for example, but you want to act as Teresa Serrano. So in the act as, you put in the person you want to start your proxy as. So when acting as another user, you will see on behalf of in the type right corner of the screen. So not mostly, but all the time in the Workday, when you're logged in, this is Workday UI, right? On the Workday UI, when you're logged in, on the right hand side, you will see your user. So right now I'm logged in as Logan McNeil, and you can see I'm Logan McNeil. But if I do a start proxy, you will be seeing that I will be seeing on behalf of on the top right corner of the screen. So if I do start proxy as Teresa Serrano, it will show up like this. You can use the stop proxy task to act as yourself again. So once you have started the proxy and you want to stop the proxy, you can just do a stop proxy task. So reporting overview. So we will be describing the high-level reporting capabilities in Workday, view Workday standard reports, run a standard report and explore the output, copy a standard report to create a custom report, create a report tag and associate it with custom reports, and determine if a standard report can be copied and used as the starting point for a custom report. So that's what we're going to do. So a little Workday reporting overview, how this whole thing works, right? So Workday, as you can see, we've shown it in a pretty cloud. And in the Workday, so there's a report writer, which is Workday UI. There's embedded analytics. There are dashboards and there are scorecards. And big data, you can get the access to the reports. You can get all this information. You can have an outbound integration between Workday and getting this data out, reporting as a service. Or you can have a mobile access to these reports. Report Designer BIRT tool in Workday Studio. So you can actually use Workday Studio also to develop fancier reports. So when you're using Workday UI, you generate pretty good reports. But if you really want some fancy stuff, there is another tool called Workday Studio, and you use that to design your reports. So reports in Workday are designed for the functional user, right? What's the objective? You and me and we all of the people on this call, we are all technical users. We understand what's an XML, what's a CSV, what's a JSON, how the data looks like, can I do a web service call, integration. But a functional user doesn't understand this. They are on the functional side of things. They understand how the business works. They don't care about technology. So for them to see the data, that's why we need the reports, right? And so these reports, they're designed for functional user and have an easy to use, consumer friendly interface, right? So they're not technical interface. We're not showing the data in XML format. What we are doing is we are showing this data on the user interface. So reports are built into the application, okay, which allows users to take action on the report output directly from the UI. So when you see the report, right in the Workday UI, and you take the action right from there. By being built in and not bolt on, reports in Workday also leverage your security configuration, right? Because they're built into the Workday system. We have not screwed them over the Workday infrastructure. They are part of the Workday infrastructure. So they leverage the security configuration, what we have designed in Workday. This allows you to access real-time and relevant data. You can build custom reports using the report writer tool. You can embed the reports in your business process transactions to provide relevant data for decision making at the time of decision. You can also enable the reports as worklet. So once you create a report, you can expose your report as a worklet. So for example, what it means is if I go back to Workday and I have a report that I call as the ABC report, so I can come back here and I can add a report as a worklet. And a worklet is nothing. It's kind of a shortcut for a report. And I do this and I hit OK. And now I have this report right here, right? And I say done. I'm on my landing page. And here I can see there's this ABC. So if I click on ABC right here, you can see it executes a report, which shows me first 10 rows from my report. So simple report does show me the first name and last name of the employees in the organization. So what we have done is we have created this report called ABC, and we expose this report as a worklet. And by exposing this report as a worklet, we can put it on the dashboard of the Workday UI. Okay, so you can build, all right. You can also enable reports as worklets and display them on the dashboard. In addition, you can use scorecards as display a snapshot of important metrics for a specific organization for a particular period, like KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. So you can create a snapshot of the metrics. Reports can be used in outbound integrations, reporting as a service and access from mobile devices. A lot of you are interested in this, and this is one of the core pieces that we will discuss when we get to the core connector and the report as a service piece. So reports, they can be used in outbound integration. Why would you do that? So for example, you have a user, or you have a use case scenario where when you hire an employee, you want to send that new hire information which just got loaded into Workday to some other system. So you're building an integration between Workday and SAP SuccessFactors, for example, right? So you have your SAP, your Workday set up, the hire BP kicks in, you get a new hire person, and we have this new hire person. Now what do we do? We send this information, we got to send this information out of this Workday system to SAP SuccessFactors. Multiple ways of doing it, but we want to use report as a service because we want to send very specific information. We want to send out only 10 fields: first name, last name, email, phone number, address, and let's say only 5, right? So to do that, I would create a report as a service, expose these 5 fields in that report, and then call this report through an EIB, embed that EIB into my business process. So once my business process is done hiring, as soon as my hiring is complete, I will add a step in my business process, call this integration system, which in turn calls this report as a service. And this new user I created goes as a prompt to that report, gets the data, and sends the data to the SAP SuccessFactors system. So what we did here is we created a report. We expose that report as a service, embed that into the integration system, and that integration system, we embed that into a business process. So when things start triggering one step after the other, at the end, when you get to the step of calling the integration, you are calling your report, which you created like a long time ago. So that's how you create your reports in the outbound integrations. Workday allows you to associate layouts with your custom reports, which it uses to generate PDF files. In Workday, these designs are known as business form layouts. You can use big data analytics to analyze data from both Workday and external sources. Workday helps you automate your Excel processing and formatting when exporting a Workday custom report. Excel templates reduce the time and effort needed to deliver Excel workbooks based on Workday custom reports, especially in the case where you export a report on a regular basis. And then reformat the data. So most of the time, so people who are from the Workday background, they understand what's going on here is. So, and the people who don't understand it, for both of you. So most of the time, when you get into this integration space, you will see most of the people, they want Workday data out of Workday and moving into some other system, and less of the data. And I'm talking specifically about the worker data right now. So Workday is the system of records for it's the master data for the worker, for the employee. So when I say worker, worker means employee or a contingent worker. So that is what a worker is. So in terms of integration, customers or people, they usually want to get the Workday data out of Workday and write it into third-party application. Could be anything: SAP SuccessFactors, ADP, Kronos, Okta integration, single sign-on, whatever they want to do. But usually they want to get the data out of Workday and move it somewhere else. There are very, very less scenarios where they want the data from those other systems into Workday. It is rare, but it happens, and we'll get to it. How do we do that? We will create inbound EIBs. We use some Excel sheets to load the data into Workday, but it is very rare. So most of the time, the issue is, how do you get the data out? Whether it's a one-time load from Workday to the other system, or it could be an ongoing synchronization process from Workday to other system. So this is most of the time your scenarios are. The most popular object that needs integration is the worker object. Everybody wants to have integration with the worker object. So that is going to be the key in this whole class, in this whole training session. And the core connector, for that matter, what we're going to use, we'll be using the core connector worker. Okay, so finding reports in Workday. The first thing is, how do you find a report in Workday? You can use the search box to find and run the report. So we can go to this Workday UI. So again, people who have not seen Workday, let me ask this. Who has not seen Workday before in this class? Is everybody aware of the Workday UI? Or do I have anybody today joining for the first time who has not seen Workday? Siva? Siva, are you
I
aware
have
of the
seen
Workday?
Ricky. Yeah,
Ricky,
yeah,
okay,
I have
good.
seen Ricky.
Perfect. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. All right, I was just doing my due diligence, making sure that no man left behind. So I'm hoping now everybody has seen the Workday UI. So we are trying to find the reports. Now, how do you find reports? Now, as you guys know, that the only thing is the search box that's available to you. So how do you find your reports? So anytime you want to find a report, let's say, for example, I want to find my report ABC. So I created this report ABC. I just type in ABC and I can get to my report. Now, this report, when I do that, is executing. There are 493 items that execute. I can go to the part where I have, where I can edit this report, right? I can edit this report. And in this editing of this report, you will see the data source and whatnot, and we will go there. So as you can see that this one right here, it's pretty straightforward, searching for a report. I have a report that I have created as a service. I can do a worker report as a service. I have all workers. I can pass in the effective date time. If I don't want to, it's not mandatory, and it gives me some hard-coded data, which I've hard-coded. So again, this is a custom report that I have created. And again, there are very few fields that I'm picking out from here. So that's that. So searching is fairly easy. But again, if you have tons and tons of data, how do you maneuver? So you can use the search box to find and run the reports in Workday. In the search results, you will see two sections of the results. So if I just do some basic search, not finding a specific information, if I just type in ABC and hit enter, like you will see there's a lot of data. So there's a task and reports, and there is all of Workday. So if you just want to, so the report definition is right here. If I want to go to the definition of the report, if I want to execute the report, I can just click right here. So by default, what you're looking at is all of Workday. Okay. You can actually filter your data. You can just go to the task and the reports. If you're looking for integrations, you will see your integrations. If you're looking for some payroll information, you can go and filter your data. Okay. So just about how do you search the data. Using search prefix. So there's a way that you can search for specific information in Workday. So by using search prefix, you can use the search prefixes to limit the search results. So typing a question mark. So if I go back here and I type a question mark, you will see a list of all the prefixes that are available in Workday. So there are 253 prefixes. So if you're looking for absence balance, you can do this. And let's say you're trying to find business processes, right? So business process definition, you do a BP colon and the name of the business process, and it'll give you the business process. For reports, I'm going to go and find some report. Okay. So report field, I can do just field, report group, requisition. Okay. So in this case, for example, if I do RD, searches for the custom reports using a search string. RDT, searches for custom report definition using a report tag. And I haven't told you what report tags and stuff are, but so if I do RD and expense, if I'll do RD expense. So this is my report definitions. You can see the report definition, which has policy in it, right? Policy related. So these are all definitions. So if I do RD, ABC. So there are two definitions, ABC and ABCD. So they both have ABC in it. So I only got the report definitions, right? So these are my report definitions. So these are some prefixes that you can use to filter your data. Now, if you're looking for field, searches for field, including report fields using a search string. So you could have a field in it. So if I go back here and say field, first name, oops, am I not finding any? I will get it later. So search prefixes. Okay, so there's a scenario. So Teresa Serrano, she needs to create a report that identifies expenses without a receipt. Okay, so she wants to create a report where you can identify the expenses which are without a receipt. These are the fields she needs to display in the report. So you want the expense report name, the expense report date, the cost center, the worker, the expenses item as work tax, the currency, the amount, and the receipt attached, right? So so this is a report that will identify the expenses without a receipt. If there is a Workday standard report that is close to what Teresa needs, she can copy and modify it, right? Like I said, before you start your mission of creating a new report, always look and see that if there is a report that exists already in the system, very close to what you're trying to achieve. So what you can do is, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You could take this existing report, copy it, and then modify it. So Workday standard, you can use the Workday standard reports report. So we can go here and do Workday standard reports, and it shows you all the standard reports. I don't want to do a report category, just give me everything. It's going to take some time for it to come back, but once we get there. So it reports to view the Workday delivered reports. So this is going to give you the reports that are delivered by Workday, the standard reports. When you run this report, it asks you to select the category whose reports you want to list. You can select as many categories as you want. This report shows all standard reports in all categories, even if you do not have security permissions to access the menu category or the report. You must have access to the custom report administration security domain to run the Workday standard report. So here you go. I did not specify a category, so it came back. There are almost 4,000 report items. So this is a list of all the reports that exist in this tenant provided by Workday. This does not display any custom reports that you would have created, but these are all standard reports. So the task is Workday standard reports. Okay, so these are the columns that are displayed in the report: the category for the standard report, the report, related actions you can take on the standard report, the name of the report, the description, the type of the report, Express or report writer. The Express or reports are created using a proprietary programming tool that provides special capabilities for building reports. You cannot copy and modify these reports. Report writer are the same report writer tool that is available to us. That is the Workday UI. Schedulable indicates whether a report can be scheduled. Can you schedule a report? So if you create a report, you can put a scheduler on that report so that it gets executed on a specific time, on every day, every week, every month, whichever you like. Domain shows the name of the domain in which the report is secured. Users must have access to one of the security domains to run the report. So as you can see, there's a domain. These are the domain that you should have access to before you can execute this report. Are you guys aware of the security setup in Workday? Please do say a yes or no in the chat window. Okay, Priyadarshini says no. Suresh, no. Okay. Rashmi, yes. Siva, yes, a little bit. Okay. Okay. Martin, I expect you to know. And Ram, I think you would know. Okay. All right. So I'll give you a quick refresher. So the way it works is, so security is very important aspect of Workday, and I'll tell you why. Because it's human capital management system, there is very, very sensitive information. And the reason there's very sensitive information is because there's information around your passport information, visa information, your personal information, your contacts, your personal contacts, emergency contacts, your payroll, your benefits, everything. So if somebody is able to see that information and they're not authorized to see it, you have a problem. You have a big problem. So how does Workday take care of that? So the way Workday takes care of that is, so when you have a user, when you have a Workday user created, that Workday user is assigned to a security group. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna go and look at something. There's a report called functional areas, and go to functional areas. I'm gonna pick up a functional area. Actually, what was it? First should I pick? Okay, organization and roles. And I picked this one up because this is very related to the way things are set up in Workday. This is about the organization, the structure, the people, the hierarchy. It contains all of that information. So I'm actually filtering on the functional area. So the whole Workday system is the top thing in the Workday ecosystem is the functional area. So under functional area, you can see it includes the domain. So the functional area, which in this case is organization and roles, and the core financials, expenses, grants, HCM, they all have it. So the functional area is organization and roles. This includes the domains. Okay, so the domains, let's say for example, I'm going to go and do managing a location. So the location, managing of the location is a domain. So I'm going to click on manage the location. Now a domain secures these secured items. So a domain is the thing which is actually securing some information. So securing some securable items. So another thing is, what is it securing, right? So think about this. We were at the organization and roles. That is the top level thing. From organization and roles, we go to the domains. So the domain pieces. So in the domains, you would be seeing that each domain is actually securing some information. What is it securing? So it's securing 33 items. Now, 33 items, what are it securing? It's securing some data sources, some custom objects, some instance sets, some report fields, some reports and tasks. So look at these reports, right? So these are some reports and tasks and the web service. Now, as you can see that this information right here, these reports, these are secured by this domain called managed location. Now, this domain, I can go back here and view the security policy. So there is a security policy for this given domain, and the security policy defines who has access to this domain. Now in this domain, as you can see, the implementers, the organization administrators, they have the permission to view as well as modify. However, all contingent workers, all the employees, finance auditors, HR auditor, payroll auditor, system auditor, they have the power only to view. They cannot modify. The only people who can modify is if you are part of these two security groups. Now, what is a security group? So I hope you're with me so far. So we were at functional area. Under functional area are the domains. Let's say, for example, managing the location. Now that domain, it secures some securable items. So for example, it secures some reports. I want access to this report. How would I get access to that report? I need to be, so we are in the domain security policy right now. So the domain security policy defines who has access to a specific domain. Now in this case, it defines that these people have access to this domain, right, to manage location. Now, these people, these are not people, these are security groups. Now, my user, which was created for me when I joined this organization, I got a Workday account. My user has to be a part of one of these security groups, one or more of these security groups. I got to be part of either the implementer or the organization administrator. If I just want to view, I got to be part of the all employees. So when my Workday user is created, it better be a part of it. Otherwise, I won't have access to this managed location. I won't be able to view it. So your user is going to be a part of the security group. For example, I go to the implementers. So if I go to the security group implementers, you can see that the domain security policy permissions that I have for this one. Okay. Okay, functional areas and my functional area description, organization and roles. Yeah. So the point is, functional area has domains. Domain secures securable items, which could be data sources, which could be reports, which could be tasks. And then how do you get access to that? You get access to those domains by the domain security policy, making changes to that domain security policy and assigning your user to the right security group and adding that security group into that specific domain security policy. You guys understand a little bit? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to tell you that how the security is, why security is important. So this piece right here, domain, it shows the name of the domain in which the report is secured. So like I said, so that domain contains the information where your report will be secured. Users must have access to one of the security domains to run the report. So we can explore the standard reports. Okay, you guys can do this, is not a big deal. So you just work stand rep in the search box and press enter, and work stand rep, Workday standard report. So as you can see, I did type that before, but I typed the whole Workday standard reports thing. But as you can see, Workday does take abbreviations, and when it takes abbreviations, you should be typing the right spelling. If I do Workday STNA, it messes up. It doesn't get that. So make sure that you spell the right way. Even you're abbreviating it, but standard is always spell STAN or STNA. So your spelling should be right, and it would fetch up the right report or task that you're trying to execute. Okay, select worker data, worker history data. You can go and do a worker data. And again, you can see different kind of reports that you can get to. So it's just like browsing the standard reports. So run a standard report. Okay. Okay, let's do Workday standard reports. Worker reports. Okay, and then click OK to view the report. Which reports that you find workers and supervise your organization, filter based degree or school. Excuse me. Some question that you can answer. Okay, I have a question in the chat. Are you going to share the PDF that you're reading? Yes, sir, you will. You will get the PDF. Apart from this PDF, I will also share another PDF. That PDF is not in this PDF, but that is going to be your lab work. That is going to be your assignments that you will be completing. So you will get that too. Okay. All right. Sure. So again, this is just by yourself. You can do this run by yourself. This is not a big deal. You're just running a report that already exists in the system. It's not a explore the report output, select sort descending, sort ascending. Okay, run a standard report. Okay, now we get to the copying a standard report. So running a standard report, you guys have, I can show you if you want me to run a standard report. Let me know if you want me to execute one.
Yeah, can you, hi, this is Priya. Can you just show once?
Sure, okay.
Running the
so I'm going to do this here. So I'm going to do activity 1.1, which is run a standard report. So the business cases, Teresa, you remember I showed you a business case? Teresa Serrano, she needs to create a report that shows expense report line items without a receipt. She needs to display these fields in the report. So she needs to see if there's a Workday standard report that meets her needs. Like I said, first thing is you should go back and check if there is a report that already exists. So we're going to log in as Teresa Serrano. Now in this case, I'm already logged in as Logan McNeil. What should I do? I can do a start proxy. Right? I can do a start proxy, and I'm going to start proxy and do Teresa Serrano. Hit OK. As you can see, now I am logged. I will be acting as Teresa Serrano. Right? Now, as you can see, welcome on behalf of Teresa Serrano. So now I'm here, and now type work standard report and press enter. We will try to search for the Workday standard reports and select the expenses in the report category. So Workday standard reports, In the report categories, I'll try to search for expenses. Expenses. And I'm going to get a bunch of reports back. And as per my lab, you can see, scroll down in the list of reports and find the expenses without receipt report. Expenses without receipt. Okay, I'm going to search for expenses threshold by cost center, maximum amount. Oh, there we go. Expenses without receipts. I got that report. So what can I do? So you see this thing. This is called a related action menu. These three ellipses on the orange thing is called a related action menu. So what can I do? I can do a UI task, schedule it, view associated web service operations. I can run this. I can see the security analysis. I can do schedule this report. I can see the integration ID if I want to call this report by another tool, or I can do an audit trail. So let's see what our lab wants us to do. So as our lab says, based on the description field, does this report shows expense report line items without an attached receipt? Okay, because look at this use case. Create a report that shows expense report line items without a receipt. So I'm going to go back and read this document. Track expense report lines without receipt included flags checked that are not fixed, blah, blah, blah. So yes, I think it does. It does have what we need. Is this a report writer report? I'm going to go back and check. It is a report writer report. So if it is a report writer report, it's not an express report. We can actually copy this report as well. Run a standard report. Now click the expenses without receipts report, related action, and select standard report and run. Report, standard report, and run. Now, you see these prompts, and I think this goes back to the question that you raised, Ram, some time back. How do you, or where does you populate this data for? Where do these prompts come from? So when this report was created, you define the prompts at that point in time, that what are my prompts going to be. So in this case, it's asking you for which company. Now, this is not an organization. It's asking for a company because we're dealing with financials now, right? It's an expense. So for which company do you want to see a report, expenses without the receipt? If you know for a given worker, you can type the worker as well, but worker is not mandatory. The ones that are marked in red are the mandatory ones, and the reporting currency. Okay, so let's see what data we have to provide. So company is Global Modern Services between 1/1/2015 to 12/31/2015. So I'm going to go back here and search for Global Modern Services USA. All right, found it. And forgot the date. What was it? 1/1/2015, 1/1/2015, 12/31/2015, and reporting currency must be USD. All right. Okay. No data. So for this filter, my report doesn't have any data. Now, in this case, now this could happen to you, not a big deal. So what would happen is, because you executed a report and you saw no data, probably because that tenant where this this document was written in the tenant, it had data. So again, go ahead and try to manipulate it. See if you can find data from 2015 to, let's say, 2018. Let's see if we can get data. Yeah, we found one. See, so again, based on the tenant that you are using, there could be discrepancy in the data. Don't flip out. Don't be worried about it. It's just that you might not have a data configured in your tenant where you are running this specific lab. And these tenants, they get refreshed very often, and you're not the only person working on the tenant. It's a shared tenant being shared by several students. So for example, so in this one, when I execute this, change the date parameter. So I got the expense report name, I got the company, the expense report date, the expense report line date, the worker, email address, managers, expense item as a work tag. So this guy submitted an expense under the taxis, trains, and shuttles for $20 USD. and it's unpaid. But again, this is the line item for which this person did not submit a receipt. Okay, so but what we did not create this custom report. All we did was we we went to the standard reports, we searched for the standard report, we luckily found a standard report, and we just executed that report. So everything was already there. Now in this case, we got to make sure that she has asked for all this information: expense report date. She's also asked for a cost center. Do we have cost center in our report? We don't have cost center. So what do we need? We might have to go back and modify this report to actually have the cost center. Okay. Are any of these desired fields missing from the standard report? Yes, there are fields missing. You can specify which fields are missing. Are there fields in the standard report that Teresa does not want displayed? Yes, there are some fields in this report that Teresa did not ask for, like expense report line date or whatnot. So you can take them off. Can Teresa use the standard report as is, or will she need to copy and modify it? She will need to copy and modify it because this report has some information that Teresa does not need and does not have some information that Teresa needs. So we got to modify this report. Explore the report output. Now click the expense report date column and then select sort descending. We only have one column in it, so there's not much we can do, but we can actually do the sorting or do the filter actually in this case because there's not much data. Click the expense report date column, select remove sort, view the expense item as work tag column, both airfare and meals in the value field. So again, because of the fact it's picking up different data, that's why they're talking different terminology for this report. Expense item is work tag column. So they're talking about airfare, we're talking about taxi, trains, and shuttles. Okay. Add a filter, remove a filter. In the worker column, click this person's related action. Notice that there are several related actions you can take for Neil right from this report. So what they're saying is you can come to the worker, and again, you just hover your mouse and you will see these related actions pop up. Just do that. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do for this person right from here. And again, you are able to see all that is because you're logged in as one of the two super users, Teresa Serrano or Logan McNeil. If you are a regular worker, you might not have all this privileges and access. Okay. All right, we're back. I see a question. Is proxy allowed in real time? You mean production, Siva?
Yeah. As
No.
an integration consultant, like will they allow proxies or doing some action or some test, something like that?
Yeah, it's always there in only in sandbox and in GMS tenants, not in production.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because it becomes a security issue, right? So you're in the right, so that's why.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So copying a standard report, there are two ways to copy a standard report. Now, based on what we were experiencing here, so Teresa wants to have more information in this report or delete some information from this one. What do we do? So we should be able to copy this standard report. So what we can do is we can copy the standard report, make it our own. All right. So I'm going to call it expenses without receipt, and I'm going to call it as Teresa copy. So we know that we're going to modify this. You can see the report type is advanced, and you cannot change that because you're just copying the existing report. The data source is expense report lines for company. You cannot do that too. You cannot change the data source because you are copying it from an existing standard report. So you're creating a custom report now, actually, right? So what's happening here is, as you can see, so there are two ways to copy a standard report. So from the standard reports related action, you can take the standard report, copy related action, exactly what we just did. Or you can use the task copy standard report to custom report. So I can do copy standard report to custom report. So if I do this, or I just did what I did, I went to the related action menu and did a copy from there. They both solve the same purpose. I can mark this report as temporary. So a temporary report usually gets deleted in 7 days, but you can make it configurable and stay for few more days. But the idea is that you have access to a report which is not permanent, because when you are in the training mode, you just keep creating stuff. You don't even go back and look at it again. So just to keep your tenant clean, you can mark it as a temporary report. So I'm going to mark it as temporary. Hit OK. And now, as you can see, that I have created a custom report called expenses without receipt Teresa copy. So it already has some information, the type of the report, it's an advanced report, the data source filter. It gets all this information from this standard report called expenses without receipt, right? And all these fields are here. Now, what you wanted to do was you wanted to remove some fields that you do not need, and you want to add some fields that Teresa wants, and they don't exist here. So what we did was we were able to copy a report and expose it into a report definition mode so that we can make changes to it. So by default, a custom report is not shared with other users. So that was a standard report that we saw. So, but when we copy it, it becomes a custom report. So if I go back, for example, let's say I made some changes. I'm going to add a line here and call it as, let's say, for example, what did she needed? She needed cost center. Let's give her cost center. All right, I'm going to give her cost center, and I make changes and I hit OK. All right, and now I have created this report, same thing. Now see, I'm executing not the expenses without receipt. I'm executing expenses without receipt Teresa copy, right? Global Modern Services, USA, 0101 2015, 12/31 2018, USD. All right. Now I have cost center coming back. So what I did, I took an existing report called expenses without receipt, and I made a copy of that receipt, gave it a different name, added a field in it, and executed it. So rather than creating a field like a report from scratch, because see, it could have been problematic. First thing is I would have to figure a lot of things. I would have to figure like what is the data source I need to pick, right? What is going to my data source filter, right? What is my primary business object? All these fields, the sorting, you can see that the sorting is already there. The filter is already in place. Look at all this, right? All this is already there. So so this report was already created for me, right? So all I did was I just went in, copied an existing report and made it my own and customized it. So that is the best way to create a custom report if there is a report which is closer to your requirements. If not, you have to create one. So modifying the report column, so you can see that's what they were doing. When editing a custom report, you can modify the fields that will be displayed as columns in the report via the columns tab. Use the plus and minus icons to add or remove a row. Use the up and down arrows to reorder the rows. So if you remember, if I go back here, custom report, edit. So as you are here, I can make like I added this one, cost center. I can make this column go up or make it go down, or really make this one go to the bottom. So you can, if you want to remove this one, I can delete this column that I just created, and so on and so forth. So you can keep playing with this. Discard. Select the field you want to display. Optionally override the field name displayed. You can do a field override. You can override the name of the column that you're going to get. So instead of request or pay, you can say worker. So you can override the name, the column heading overrides. So you can do that. Saving prompt filters. When editing a custom report, you can enable save parameters on the advanced tab. Enabling this option lets you save and reuse the prompt filter values when you run a report. So when you execute it over and over again, you don't have to go back and keep putting in the same value. Okay, so you can just enable the save parameters. Hiding the standard report. So hide Workday delivered report. The hide Workday delivered report task makes standard reports no longer searchable. This eliminates confusion with your users when you create a custom report that should be run instead of the Workday delivered report. So hide Workday delivered reports. If I go back here and do a hide, oh, I don't have access to it. I don't have access to this one, looks like. Let's see. Let me do a stop proxy. A stop proxy. I need to go back to Logan McNeil. Do hide. Yeah, Logan doesn't have access to this one. Hide Workday standard reports. So what, anyway, if what would allow you to do is, so you must have access to the setup, tenant setup general security domain to hide standard reports. My user doesn't have access to this. In this class, Logan McNeil has access to this task while Teresa Senon does not. But in this tenant that I have, none of the users have access to hide Workday standard reports because the tenant that I have is being used by several other people in my org. So we don't have access to this. So if you really want access to this, you need access to this domain setup, tenant setup, to be able to hide the standard reports. So the hide Workday delivered report task makes standard reports no longer searchable. So you see that there was a standard report and we modified that report because Teresa wanted some more columns added to it. So we took a standard one, we copied it, we made it our own. Now, I do not want people to get confused and keep executing the older standard report rather than executing the one that we created for Teresa, right? So that is why we can go back and hide the standard Workday delivered report. So when you hide a standard report, it is no longer available in search results, in menus, or as a related action. Hiding standard reports is typically performed by someone at the central organization level. This person needs to understand the full impact of this change across the entire organization. So hiding reports, like I said, you and I, we don't usually have access to this one, right? Now, hiding the reports is typically performed by someone at the central organization level, an administrator. So this person needs to understand the full impact of this change across the entire organization. If somebody just goes random and tries and has access to hiding the standard reports, they could just try to hide a lot of the Workday standard reports, which are needed. You should be able to see them. So it has to be very, very carefully sorted out that who has access to the Workday security.
Can't we undo it, Ricky?
The unhide, yes, you can.
Yeah, so how do we know, like, if once it is hide, how to find that report to unhide it?
So I don't have access to it. If I had access, I would have seen it. But again, if you have access to hiding the Workday delivered report, I'm pretty sure what you do over there is you go and you add your report that go ahead and hide this report, right? So it's like kind of like you have whitelisting of the IP addresses kind of a thing. You put that, okay, this IP address, this IP address, IP address, this is open. Similarly, you go to this task, hide Workday delivered report. Like in this case, you have expenses without receipt. So you add it into a list so that they disappear from the search. If you go back to hide Workday delivered report and you delete it from this list, they start showing up again.
Ricky Ram here, a quick question that raised a new question. So if I hide a report, okay, can I create a new custom report with the same name?
Sorry, say that again?
If I hide this report, which is delivered by Workday, can I create a custom report with the same name? Does it conflict? Does it throw any error?
So you have a custom report. You want to create another custom report with the same name?
No, no. There's Workday delivered a report called expense without receipt that is
Mm-hmm.
delivered by Workday, and we
Mm-hmm.
are hiding that particular report.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to go and create a custom report with the same name. Does
Mm-hmm.
Workday allow, or does it create?
Workday does not allow a same naming of the same report. It's going to raise an error.
So how do I know that it is a, like, okay, I got it. So it doesn't allow. That's good.
No, it's not. It doesn't. It doesn't. You
Okay.
cannot have a same report by the same name. Same thing with a lot of things. You create a custom field. You already have a custom field. It doesn't allow you to do that.
Okay. So there is. I might need to contact administrator to unhide that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Copying a standard report. I showed you how do you copy a standard report. Credit card transactions. Copy a standard report. 1.2. Okay. So okay, the report. All right. Copy a standard report. So you need to display these fields. Modifying the columns in the report. Guys, I have a question. So you want this pattern of me going over some theory, going over the lab, or continue keep showing you lab after lab after lab, or how to do stuff? What is your feedback? What do you want to do?
Honestly, I see it is really boring that you reading the page by page,
I
line by
thought
line.
so. I thought so.
Yeah.
But again, all right. Because again, see, again, different batches have different requirements, and that's why I wanted to get your feedback. If you don't, but again, there are other people in this batch too. So let me ask a general consensus. You guys want me to go? I can go boom, boom, boom. Only show you the demo for 2 hours, and keep doing stuff. And theory is there would be no theory.
Yeah,
But I
but
don't think.
if you're sharing this document, then we have 2 hours to practice all this. That's my opinion. But yeah, let's open to the board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even for me, I don't think so that we should go for demo all the class long, because
Mhm.
I think the instructions are pretty much clear here. Let's practice, and if there is an issue, definitely we can go back and check with you that these instructions are not clear. Can you show this particular demo?
Okay. All right. So okay. So no PPTs, primarily demo stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds
But
good. But again, guys,
I
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you when you will run into an issue. I'll tell you when you will run into an issue. And I wanted to use this as a general habit. When I get to the concept of explain your primary business object, related business object, data sources, core connectors, integration overrides, and you might find a little challenge. So let me know when you run into a challenge. Okay. So just be vocal about it. Because not everybody in a batch is smart as the other one, and because I know that some people have worked experience, some people do not. So
Yeah, sometimes you might be a better judge because few things, it's better if you show once, go through the screen and then
okay,
show it, and then, we practice. So you will be
all
the
right,
better judge which we can ignore and which we should be going with you once.
sounds good. Sounds good, guys. No, I just heard something, so I thought I'll check with you guys.
But before we move forward, Ricky, I have one question regarding the report when you were copying. There
Mm-hmm.
was an option to put fully indexed. So what was that, and data source type indexed? So I want, if you can highlight a little more that what is that
I
and
will get to it. I haven't really gotten to the point where we talk about data sources. Once we get to data sources, I would showcase that.
sure.
Okay, so all right, let me change my methodology a little bit. Okay, I am going to change my methodology. No slide for now. We're gonna go a different route. Okay, so we are going to copy a standard report now. All right, so now again a business case. You will see this as a lab. This is a lab and we will be copying a standard report. So business case is Teresa Serrano. She needs to copy the expenses without receipt standard report and modify the columns displayed in the report. She needs to add to display. So a couple of fields. So copying a standard report. So we will be logging as Teresa Serrano. In this case, I'm going to go as a starter proxy. Going in and going as T Serrano. Got in. So the objective is copying a standard report, and I'm logged in on behalf of Teresa Serrano, and I'm going to expense without receipt. All right, so I'm going to expense without receipt from the top portion, and I'm going to hit this report. Now this is my report, and again we're going to go. We have actually copied this, right? So I'm going to call this report. Hold on. We have already done this. I don't want to create it again. So we created this report, expense without receipt, Teresa copy. So we have this report, and I'm executing this for global services, USA. 0101 2015, 0101 2018, USD. Okay. Why I did not get any data? Probably this was 1231. Doesn't matter. Got the data. Now what I want to do is so I have to remove some fields and add some fields. So I'm going to go back to my custom report, edit it, and when I go there, so I'm taking care of removing the company and removing the email work, removing the workers manager. Do I have the workers manager? Workers manager right here. And removing the expense report status, expense report worker payment status, and memo. So I took care of these fields. Now I got to add. So first thing is add the cost center. I already have it. On the reporting currency row, add the row icon. Just add another icon. And I'm going to call this one as receipt included in a attached, receipt attached. Okay, column head, gonna give it a column heading override. So column heading override is something where when this report gets displayed, instead of seeing this receipt included and attached, you would see the value that I display here, and I'm gonna call it as receipt attached. Options. In the options, I can see the valid options. I can say show no when false. Okay. And I can bring this a little down. Oops. Receipt included and attached. Okay. Reporting currency is right here, and the options, valid options, show currency symbol, valid options, do not show if empty. Extended amount and currency reporting. Actually, the extended amount, this one right here. Show currency symbol. As you can see, these options, they are very intuitive. Based on the kind of field they are on, like this one right here, it understands that it's on a currency field, extended amount and reporting currency, and you have the option to the show currency symbol. Like it's an extended amount. And this one right here, in the valid options, it's different. Do not show if empty, related tasks only. So these are very smart fields. They understand what field they are set on, and the options change according to that. And so that's that. Go to the advanced and verify that the
Does that option work even for the calculated field which we create?
Which option? These options?
Yes, like if I in the field, if I'm using some calculated field here,
Mhm.
will this option still be active, working, or how does it work?
It depends what your calculated field is. My gut feeling is no, because calculated field could be evaluating an expression, or it could
Yeah,
be a true, right? So the option doesn't. So the option is only valid for the fields which are Workday provided.
got it.
Mhm. Okay. So on the advanced tab, verify that enable save parameter is checked, and click OK. Temporary. Oh, you remember I made this report as a temporary report. So the date the report definition will be deleted is 9/3/2019. So I'm going to say that, and I'm going to hit OK. And it's done, and I'm going to run the report. Same thing. Global modern services. As you can see that there's so many global modern services set up. Here's my USA. 0101 2015. 12. Oh, really? 12/31. Okay, so you have cost center. The receipt attached is the value of no. Worker, expense items, work tag, extended amount, and currency, reporting currency. So we deleted a lot of redundant fields that were not needed. Okay. We provided the report prompts and the search results. Okay. I can actually go back and I can save this filter, give this filter a name and call it as filter 1 and save it. Okay.
Can you show that again? How you
Yeah.
save it?
That's exactly what I'm about to do. So you see that right here? So once you populate the data, once you have populated your data, what you can do is you can come back and all this filter, all these criteria, all these prompts that you have filled in, you can come back and give it a name and call it, like I can call it as filter 2, and I save it, right? So next time when I execute the report, it will show up this box right here, and I will pick up the filter which I want to use, just use that and execute that to run my report rather than typing data over. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. So next one is leveraging the standard report. So the business cases for each scenario determine. Again, I think so. This is more of a question and answer thing. So determine if there is a standard report you can use as a starting point. If yes, what modifications will you make? So again, for this, once you have access to your tenant, go and explore these labs. So what you will do is you would actually go to the Workday standard reports, and based on this, so you will explore these options. So first thing is, it's asking you a question that you need a report that displays the journal lines by company, year, and period. The report should display blah, 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 these many fields. And then can you use a standard report as a starting point? If yes, what modifications will you make? Similarly, there's another one. You need a report that lists the benefit plans in which a worker is eligible to enroll. So, and the report should show you this, this, this. Can you find a report that is very very similar to these requirements? If you can find a report, can it be a starting point? If yes, what modifications will you make? So this is more of a question and answer, and for you to go back and search into the tenant. Can you find these? Next thing I want to talk about is using the report tags. So you can use the report tags to easily categorize and find the reports. Okay, so I'm going to go back and do a stop proxy because I don't want to be logged in as Teresa Serrano. Maybe, you know what, for this one, let's stay. So you can use the report tags to easily categorize. And what we will do is we will go back to our report. So I'm going to go back and edit this custom report. We can create a new report tag, and we can go and edit our custom report. and do a report tag. So in the report tags, what we can do, so what are report tags? We can use these report tags to easily categorize and find our reports. So report tags, we can create a report tag and let's call it as Teresa custom. Let's say Teresa expense, no attachment. Okay. Now I have a, yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. Can I search these tags? Can I have a report with all these tags?
Yes, that is the benefit of this. So, so when
Okay,
you're searching, we were searching using the reports tag. So,
got you.
so
Thanks.
now I'm going to save it and we'll do Teresa expense, no attachment. So I'm going to go back, let's say it, and done. And we'll search for Teresa expense, no. There you go. It finds this expense without receipt. So if we did not have a report and we just did a search like this, you guys know that if you do a search and if this thing does not, we cannot find a name to name match, it would not show up. But because it is a report tag that we have created, any report, and if I just do Teresa expense, let's see what happens. There you go. So it does find that. So it finds, so that is why report tag is important. So now when you search, so, but again, there's a catch with it. So we are looking at this report, expense without receipts, Teresa copy, and we did this report tag thing. So for this, you must have access to the report tag management security domain to create the report tags. It's not always necessary, but most of the times when you have access to create a custom report, you would have the access to the report tag management security domain. So once you are able to create a report tag, and when you do a search for a report tag name, all associated reports will be displayed. You can use the, actually you can do RDT and do Teresa expense. Again, we only have one, but if there were multiple reports with the Teresa expense or expense without receipt, you would have seen multiple. So that's that.
So that means we can use one tag in multiple reports.
You can, yeah,
Right?
you could,
So
yeah,
when
exactly.
we are when we are using the task called create report task, we are, for example, we put the name so and so, and we add like multiple times we are using the same tag, and every time we are adding a different name of the report. That's how we are adding the same tag in the multiple.
Exactly. So like you one person, you're creating multiple reports and you want to create a tag on all of those reports. These reports would have different names, right?
Yes.
They all have different purpose. But just to make sure that these are your reports, you could create a report tag by adding your name to the report tag and tie all these reports together with one report tag. And when you search, all your reports should show up.
But right now, the way you searched, we could have searched this report even without the tag. Is it
Yeah,
not?
we could have. But again, because of the fact I remember the name of the report, right? I've only created one report. Now, if you have 20, like you're using a shared tenant that you will use, and how would you search for your reports? In a shared tenant, everybody will be following the same labs. Everybody would be creating the same reports, and then you will all be like in a trouble. Like, where do I find my reports? Is by you will be appending your names and stuff, but still, you will have to. It is a great feature to search the reports by the report tags.
Okay.
There's an activity, add report tags to custom reports. So again, the idea is going back to the same report, expense without receipt, there is a copy, create report tag, which we just did, Teresa expense, no attachment, and click OK.
Ricky, one more question. See, when you create the tags, like the tag would be Ricky's report, Suresh report. Okay. So and the names can be, the report names can be the same.
No. Report names won't be same. Let's try to create a custom report. Okay. Let's try to create a custom report with the same name that we just had. See what happens.
Mostly in real life, it will be tagged like benefits or,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Benefit, payroll, expenses. Yes. Yeah. So when you search the expenses report, all the reports that have expenses would show up, and so would this report be. Right. So if I added another tag called expenses, and I'm done here. Now if I do a search just for the expenses tag.
Hey, I just saw that we can add multiple tags in one report.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Right. So I did RDT expenses. So all the report definitions you found, and you find your report as well. So all the report definitions, RDT expenses. I'm not sure if there's any payroll report tags, but again, let's do payroll. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So these are the payrolls. Just pick up any report definition. Report tags, manager reports, payroll. You can have multiple report tags attached to a report.
Ricky, quick question. In Workday, we cannot group the reports like all the payroll related reports into one branch or one folder, something like that. So
Not one folder like, but you would have a, what is that, composite report kind of a structure where you have one report, one main report, and the other reports are part of that report, but they don't show up in like a folder structure kind of a way.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
How many report types are there? Like
around 6 or 7. So you have so you have standard and custom. In custom, you have simple report, you have advanced report, you have inbox, you have search, you have matrix. I think there's one more, 6 or 7 kind.
Ricky, this is Priya. Will you be showing creating a report from scratch, any custom report?
Yes,
Also this.
several. We just started today.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So Workday standard reports, you know how to search for Workday standard reports, right? So Workday stand rep, and you do that, you get to Workday standard reports. Similarly, to search for, you can use the all custom reports to search for the reports that are custom. Okay, so there are 986 custom reports in the tenant. You can leverage these custom reports as a starting point for new custom reports. So either you can create a custom report from scratch, because that is sometimes a necessity that you have to create a custom report from scratch, because there is nothing that exists in the tenant that you want to do. So for that need, you would have to go back into the system and create a report from scratch. But if there is a report that you need, and you already have a report like that, you already pre-created it, you just need to copy it. So you can go back into your custom reports and you can copy it. For example, this report that we were doing, what is it? Teresa Serrano, right? Teresa copy. So I can take this report and I want to create another copy of this report. I can actually, use my filter one, populate it, run it, take it, custom report, and I can again copy it. So you can keep making copies of your custom reports. So you can do that rather than creating it from scratch. But again, as I said, sometimes you really do need to create it from scratch. Okay, so now there's a next activity, which is exploring a custom report. So exploring a custom report, I'm going to do stop the proxy. And RD WDINST. No, it doesn't exist. It's a different report. I'm going to go to search for expense report, RDT. Okay, so there's, let's say, for example, this lab is nothing but it talks about how do you explore a custom reports, right? We need to understand how the primary business object and data source control, what can be displayed on a custom report. So in this report, the name of the report is Expense Reports LTM. What is the type of the report? The type of the report is advanced report. Now, the advanced reports are the ones where you could have the data for using a primary business object and a related business object. So if you remember, I talked about the worker information, for example. A worker information is a primary business object. And the related information is this worker's compensation, this worker's benefit, this worker's payroll, this worker's any kind of expense line items, expenses. So these are related business objects. An advanced report is the one where you could fetch the information from the primary business object, which is this person's first name, last name, email address, as well as this person's compensation, this person's expense reports, everything in one go. So an advanced report allows you to do that. A simple report, if you were to create a custom report of type simple, a simple report, you could only fetch the data for a primary business object, not the related business object. So you could only be doing the first name, last name, email, not his compensation, not his expenses, not any of that situation, because you selected the primary business object. You cannot get to the related business object from so there's no relationship. It's kind of a, in terms of databases, you can do a query with the join. In case of simple reports, you cannot create a join. However, in case of an advanced report, you can join the tables. So in terms of database terms. So as you can see, the report name, the type of the report is advanced. Another thing that you can do with advanced report is, apart from PBO and the RBO, you could actually expose your report as a web service. That means making it as a report as a service, so that can be extended. It can be called by third-party integrations. It can be a part of the integration in Workday, and you can use it to send data out of Workday. So you could use, otherwise, if it's a simple report, you cannot do that. What else? You can use an advanced report as a worklet. So you create a report and expose that report enable that report as a worklet, and using that worklet, you can show it in your dashboard. So in this case, as you can see, the data source is all active and terminated workers. So data sources, so what is the report data source? The report data source is all active and terminated workers. The data source type is standard. There's other ones called Prism, and the primary business object is a worker. So the data source that you pick is really, really important, because I think I did discuss it in the last class. It's about when you're picking up a data source. So Workday says, okay, so there are workers in the tenant. So there are workers, like 493 workers in the system. For your report, do you need all of them? Because there could be retirees, there could be active, inactive, all kind of workers. So when you use your data source as all workers, you get 493 records. But let's say you're only interested in all active and terminated workers. You're not interested in inactive workers. You could have used the data source as all workers, but then what you have to do is you would have to go back and do a filter and a sub filter and add the clause where the status of the employee is not active. You could do that. But what it doesn't in turn to you is that if there is a system where you're running this whole integration or this whole report, there is thousands and thousands of records, the processing of your report becomes super slow. So to avoid the bad performance of your report, it's always a good idea to pick up the right data source. So in this case, a data source, the all active and terminated workers, it's a data source which you can think as of a subset to the all workers, and Workday provides this data source to you. So it's kind of pre-filtered data. So you don't have to put a filter on it. Okay. Primary business object. So you can look at the business object and the field. So these are your columns. So this is the business object, the field. Yep, there's a question, I think.
Yeah, in the advanced report, you said we can join the PBO and RBO, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do we
Mm-hmm.
have multiple kind of joins here, like left, right, outer, inner, all that stuff?
Nope, nope, nope. I just use this as an example. It's not. It's
Oh,
not. It's not SQL.
yeah. In those scenarios, how do you we do? Like I need all the data which is here but not there, kind of scenarios.
You would use. Give me an example, actually.
Like I need all the. I need to see the first primary and related business object for that.
Okay,
uh,
yeah, that's what I said. So when you get into a situation, let me know, because you're talking more in terms of a database
yeah.
table joint, right? Yeah, but that's not the case here. So you want to get, you know what, give me like this person, all his detail, and then all the expenses that are his, and then the expenses which are doesn't have a receipt or which were not to be reimbursed. So again, that is the kind of data you can get. If you want to do an exclusion in that report, so in the criteria that you will set in the filter, you will do a negation, right? So in the filter, like say in this one, in the worker, in the selection list, blah blah blah, default prompt, and the expense report, all status is not empty. If you want to get a report where the all status is empty, you could do that too, right? Just change the operator.
Do you have
But
any report or document which or document or Excel something like that which gives me a list of primary data sources or related data sources so that I will go through them and I see what contains what data or something like that.
there is a report, I don't remember it right now, but there is a report which gives you a list of all the primary business objects, all the PBOs.
I searched in Google but I could not find it. So if
Google
you
has
haven't,
no information. Google has no information about Workday. You will not find anything in Google. You have to go
yeah,
to community.workday.com.
yeah, which has restricted access. Yeah. So if you have
Yeah,
anything, could you please share if you don't mind.
I will share. I will share if I find something. So, what about the guy who's there next to you?
There are full timers. I'm a contractor, so a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
around that. I got some info from there, but I cannot say anything over here. But yeah, something
Hmm.
whatever supposed to get, I got something.
Okay. Oh, I see.
But in any case, we only have one BO and related BO. That's all right.
One primary object, one
Yeah, one
primary
primary
business,
object.
but not one related. You could get, let's say there are multiple related, right? So you have worker,
Yeah,
which is primary, but you have the compensation, which is related. You have the benefits, which is related. The expense. You can get all
okay.
of that in one report.
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking. Like, so we have one primary and two or three related, which
No,
is
but what he's asking is he needs to get a list of which are the primary and which are the
yeah, yeah,
non-primary, right?
that
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we can find like standard report as we find. Maybe if we put primary objects, maybe we can get some report related whatever available.
Yeah, it's just like I'm trying to find if there's an easier way. Let's say you don't know what the prefixes are, right? You do a question mark and you get all the prefixes that are available in Workday tenant. Similarly, if there is a way that you can get all the listing of primary business objects, hold on.
I don't think so. We have one single report for that. But what I believe is when you put like worker or when you click on the action item on that, you get you drill down basically.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's how you
It's just
get it.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like going to a functional area report and drilling down
Yeah.
from there. Okay.
Yeah. I don't
All
think
right.
so. It is one single report which describes all the primary objects and all the related business objects.
Okay.
I'm not too sure
Yeah,
though.
even I'm not aware of a report like that. But again, there's something I can look into community.
Yeah.
A listing of PBO and RBOs. Okay,
Thank you.
so sure. Last thing for tonight, creating a custom report from scratch. So we're gonna do creating a custom report from scratch. So we have to log in as Logan McNeil. I'm logged in as Logan McNeil right here. Let's go to the home page and access the create custom report. Create custom report. Okay, and then give it a report name. So the report name is WICT RW employee last base pay increase. And again, this is a report type. Somebody is asking me different kind of reports. So these are the reports that are available. You could create a simple, search, inbox, matrix, composite, advanced, transposed, and trending. I think Composite is the one where you could have multiple reports in one report, so kind of a grouping. But again, it's not like a folder structure. So for this report, we're going to be using the advanced, and the data source is going to be workers for HCM reporting. Workers for HCM reporting. Okay, I'm going to make it as a temporary report. I don't want to enable it as web service, but like I said, if you make a report as an advanced report, you get the option to enable your report as a web service. We don't want to do that as of now, so I'm just going to leave it. And let's go further. Now the data source filter is all active workers by default, but the lab is asking me to change it to all employees. So I can do all employees. So all active workers would give you the contingent workers as well, but I only want the employees. I don't want contingent workers. And that's that. So now, as you can see, we will add some rows into this report. So we are creating this report from scratch, right? We did a create custom report. We gave the report a report name. We picked up a data source. You can look at a data source as well. So you see these related action, click on that. So this one right here, this is question. Yes.
One question. This data source filter we are getting only because we have put the index there. Because
No,
I don't
you always get that.
even regardless of selecting index or something, right?
Yes. Yes.
Or is it depending on the data source that we are selecting? If we are selecting all active work or all active worker or something, will I still be getting this source filter?
The data source filter is always there, but again, the value of the data source filter is always dependent on what you pick as a data source. Does it make sense? So let's say if you're creating a report for general lines, right? For general
Yeah,
lines,
that I understood.
right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So workers for HCM reporting. And so again, like I said, because sometimes when you're picking up a data source, you don't know if you picked up the right one or the wrong one. So again, the good idea is always go here, click on this related action, and see what it's explaining you about. What does it contain? Okay. So accesses the worker's primary business object, returns one row per worker, includes all active and terminated workers, blah, blah, blah. So whenever you pick up your data source, make sure that you have picked up a right one or what is needed for your scenario, right? Okay, so we got to add some fields. I will be adding 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right, so the fields I need employee. Next one I need is employee ID for worker.
Any guideline to select the right data source? Because that's the most confusing part. What should be the data source?
Yeah, that's a million-dollar question. So which should be the data source? And again, it's most of it is hit and trial. And before you actually hit and trial, always go back and look for a standard report. If you can find a standard report which is closer to what you're about to do, let's say like somebody came back to me and they were talking about goal settings, right? Objective settings. I've never worked on objective settings, and I didn't know which filter to pick, and they really wanted some kind of filters and some condition rules to be created. And my best bet was going into the community. Before I went into the community, I looked into their tenant for their existing objective settings or goal settings, and I found a couple of reports that I could use, and then that gave me a little idea. For example, I'm not from recruiting, and if somebody comes back with a recruiting problem, my best bet is go back, look into the tenant. If there is something around recruiting that I can use, look into the business process, look into the existing reports, if any report can help you. And from those reports, you could try to make your way out. Because when you're in the integration space, everybody thinks that you know almost everything about every system, right? Whether it's Workday, it's Salesforce, it's NetSuite, it's Taleo or anything. But that's not the case, right? So when you are there and you have to figure a way out, see what is already existing in the tenant, and then there is no other place like community. But there is no holy grail that I can tell you, you know what, just look at that and it should help you. Sorry, there's none.
Ricky, is it possible that when we go to a new company tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
so instead of they using worker, they might be using as employee? instead of they can use any terminology, right?
No, see again, when you're talking to a customer always says, when they're new to the Workday integration, let's say you're talking to a customer who understands their product. They don't understand how Workday works, but they want to integrate with Workday. So let's say, and they would always say, I want to integrate with the employees in the system. Now, in the employees in the system, you as a Workday expert or a Workday subject matter expert, you know an employee in Workday is different from a contingent worker in Workday. So your question should be, so right, you got to go back and do a counter question. Okay, what do you mean by an employee? Does an employee means it's a permanent employee, it's a regular employee, or it's a contingent worker in Workday? Because it's a different thing in Workday, right? So that is where your knowledge of the Workday setup comes into play.
Okay. So, but when I go to new company, instead of they completely using the worker object, is it possible to do that they use employee object, something like that?
No. Everybody uses the worker. Everybody uses the worker.
Okay.
So
They
if
cannot configure.
no.
Okay. Thank God.
No, sure. Thank God. Yeah, absolutely. So worker is always there. So you can have a filter on the worker, and then I only want employees or I only want contingent workers. But it's always the worker object. Because see, again, there's a whole concept of a core connector worker in Workday, right? The whole HCM revolves around it. When you talk about the integration space, the core connector worker is the heart of it. So if you change that, there's nothing left for us to do. We just need to pack our bags and go. Right. So two fields, as you can see, employee and the employee ID. I pick it from the business object, the primary business object, the worker. Now the third field I'm going to pick up from a related business object called last base pay increase. So this one is a related business object. You can see last base pay increase. It contains the business process for the last compensation change with the base pay change for the employee, work delivered, related business object. Okay. So the field I'm going to use from this one is base pay current. Similarly, I'm going to delete this one and delete this one too. Yeah. So that automatically populates this one. Base pay proposed. The last one, effective date. Okay. All right. Now you see these prompts. You did not configure any prompts, but these showed up. So what happened here? So because these are the report prompts that are built into the all employees data source filter. So there are prompts that were a part of the filter, the data source filter that was a part that got generated based on the primary business object that you selected. So remove excluded from the headcount, include terminated workers, the employee type. So I'm going to go and see regular employees. I just wanted the regular employees. Okay. Now this report executed. I got 415. Okay. I can go back and select temporary and casual. Run it again. 419. So more people got added. So again, you can continue to do this. So you got the employee, you got the employee ID, you got the base pay current, the proposed, and the effective date. Now, so as you can see, you have the data from the primary business object, which is the employee and the employee ID, as well as from the related business object, which is the last base pay increase. So the base pay current, base pay proposed, and the effective date come from a related business object. Okay. Then
One quick question. Here in the proposed, it's the less amount. No, sorry. So it's effective date. So proposed amount will be effective from this date. That's what it is showing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll leave it here. So today we have covered looking at the standard reports, looking at custom reports, copying a standard report, creating a custom report out of it, making modifications, and also creating a custom report from scratch, understanding the concept of a primary and a related business object. Next thing tomorrow, what we'll be doing is determining the primary business object and data sources, doing some questions around it, sorting the data, and filtering the data, sorting, filtering, and working on the prompts. So that's what we will do tomorrow.
Ricky, can you revisit what exactly the prompts are? I didn't.
Sure thing. Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a step back. If I execute this report, I'm going to go to the design mode of this report, custom report, edit. So like I said, you saw these prompts. You did not define these prompts. Where did these prompts come from? So because of the fact the data source filter is all employees, okay? So it accesses the workers as its primary business object and by default returns rows for all active employees. Contains, so again, if you go to and check this filter, it says it contains the built-in prompts for employee, type, exclude from headcount, and include terminated employees. Now this data source filter contained these prompts. While we were executing this report, we didn't know. So now if you would have gone to the prompt section, you don't see it here as well. So if you check this, populate undefined prompt defaults, they show up here. Okay, you can
Basically,
hit
the
OK.
prompts, can I tell them as a filters on the data source?
Prompts are, so you remember when you are actually executing, let's say you're going to call a web service, or let's say you're on your phone and you want to get the weather forecast and say you want to get the weather forecast for which zip code, 30041. That is a prompt. The system asking you for a value that it wants to give you the data, but for which zip code, for which organization, for which worker. So when system asking you for a value or an input from you, that input that you provide is the prompt.
Okay.
Okay. The input that you provide for this report to be executed is the prompt. So in this case, it prompts you, but again, none of them is a required, right? None of them is a required. We just override the whole thing. We can just go back and execute this report without any prompt. I could just run this report without a prompt. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, can you, what is the blue icon it is showing on the field or the last base? Yeah,
this one right here. It's the field type. So yeah, it's a report field. Okay. All right. Sure. So tomorrow is about sorting, filtering, and prompts, and we move ahead when we get a chance.
So we can remove all built-in prompts by clicking on that, right? We don't.
No. We did not remove those built-in prompts.
No, I mean to say we stop them to prompting, right? I mean.
Stop. No, you didn't stop them from prompting because you cannot remove those prompts. Those prompts are a part of the filter. So you cannot get rid of this prompt, but those were not mandatory prompts. So you avoided them. You did not give them any value. So it gave you all the data without you specifying any specific filter. It did prompt you. You did not, you avoided that prompt.
Okay, so they were not required.
They were not required. No. Yeah, they were not mandatory.
Is there any way, like sometimes client says that, we don't want to see them at all because I'm not using them. Is there any way that we can
removing a prompt? You could provide a default value in it, but it would actually, I think, I forgot the name of the report. What did I create? WICT, CTRW. I think that was the one I created. Let me see something.
Because I believe that will be the first thing. If client doesn't want to use it, they'll say, I don't want to even see that there.
Yeah. I think there is a check. Do not prompt at
I can see
runtime.
the minus sign here. Can't we remove it from here?
No,
Like,
no, no. You cannot. If I remove it, it's gonna, and I go check that thing again, it's still gonna show up. Do not include in subtitle. Okay, let's try it one more time. There you go. It's gone. So there's a checkbox. Do not prompt at runtime. Go to prompts and do not prompt at runtime. Okay, but again, if there are some I have seen which are required, and when you encounter those, you cannot avoid them. Even when you say that don't prompt me and all that, you have to provide a value because they are required. You cannot get away from it.
okay.
All right. Okay, I'll let you guys go. We'll talk tomorrow, same time. Thank you.
Ricky, one
Yes.
question. How do we practice this?
The labs that we just went through, I will upload them onto the LMS. You will have access to the LMS. You will schedule your time. There's a sheet that you put your time in, specify what time you want to access the tenant, and then you go to the tenant and you practice these labs.
Okay.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.